Hello, my name is Rajat Talesra and welcome to my YouTube channel. So this particular video is not related to coding. Actually, it is related to coding, but I won't be coding anything in this video. But this video is really important for all those people who work as a software developer, who work in some form of front-end coding. It can be mobile, it can be websites, it can be anything, but some form of front-end coding. If you are purely working in database or back-end related thing, it's completely fine. You can avoid this video. But someone who wants to work or who is working or who has worked in websites or applications should definitely watch this video. I personally believe that the things that we'll be discussing in this video is really, really important now more than ever, actually. So let me start. It is just an audio related thing. There will be some demos in this. So I want to make you aware about web accessibility. Okay. Now let me give you an example of what accessibility word means. So for example, you are on a street, there is a store next to you, and it's a really good store where you can buy clothes. Now, the entrance of that store has stairs to it. Okay. You can easily go in, buy clothes, try them out, and you can finish your shopping. That's good. Now, assume if someone who is coming alone on a wheelchair, how can they access that store? Because there are stairs, they are alone, they cannot do this on their own, right? So it means that that particular store is not accessible to everyone. It is accessible to selective people, it is not accessible to everyone, right? That is what accessibility means. Making sure that it can be anything. Making sure that your thing, it can be software, it can be hardware, it can be real thing, is accessible to everyone. That's what accessibility means. So what is the simplest solution for that kind of example? You create a ramp, right? Where there are it's a specific type of ramp which doesn't have a slant fully. It has some sort of mini steps so that the wheels doesn't go back. Okay, if you have seen it, you can easily visualize it. Otherwise, just think of it as a slope where wheelchair people can actually use it. Okay, so that's the example of overall accessibility. Now that same thing applies to digital accessibility. Digital accessibility means that making sure that your app, your website, your software, anything is accessible to everyone. Okay, why is it important? So just think of it. Can you, as a developer, as a human, as anyone, can actually be completely off the grid from digital uh, softwares or anything digital, right? Can you live without any digital device in today's era? And if you're watching this video, that means you cannot, right? So same applies for people who have disabilities. Okay, and we as a developer should make sure that our softwares, our products are accessible to them. Okay, how can we make sure? Actually, let's not go to that. First, let's focus on what type of disabilities we are talking about, right? So obviously, it has a very broad spectrum. But if I take the one extreme, you can think of someone who is blind, who is deaf, who has more cognitive motor skills related issues like they cannot use mouse easily. So all those disabilities which are permanent, which are really problematic, not actually problematic, it's something that they have, right? Because I've gone through a lot of studies, I've gone through a lot of documentation when I was working at Google also, and there they wrote a very beautiful thing, which is actually they don't have disabilities, they are just especially enabled. What we see as a disability, let's say someone who is blind, they must be skilled in something else. And because it's something that it is very general, everyone can see, most of the people can see. That's why we are thinking, okay, because they cannot see, they are disabled. No, it's not like that. The technical, the correct, the moral term is making sure that we say them especially enabled, uh, just because they are skilled in something else and we are skilled in something else, and it is actually true. Okay, it's just that the world is not created around their thing. That's the main point. Okay, but irrespective of that, let's focus on uh, what type of disabilities are generally categorized. So blindness, deafness, all those things I have mentioned. Then there are okay, so there are three types of disabilities which I was going through another uh, podcast, and in that someone described it really beautifully. There are three types of disabilities. One is permanent disability, second is situational disability, and third is temporary disability. Okay, each one of them has a really good example. For example, if we talk about hearing related, right? So if someone who cannot hear their entire life, will consider that as a permanent disability. If someone, let's say they had some accident and because of that they are not able to hear for a certain period of time, we would consider that as a temporary disability because eventually it will get healed. Okay. And third case, which is a situational case, which is if you are in a busy traffic, busy metro or busy train station, there might be too much sound, right? And because of that, you cannot hear anything. For example, the easiest thing of that, which you might have experienced, is if you don't keep your mobile on vibrate, and if you are in a very crowded place, you won't be able to hear someone calling you on your phone, right? That's situational disability for you. And that's why I'm saying that everyone is skilled in something else. It's just that no one is actually disabled. The situations make them disabled. I'll expand on this later on again. Okay. So I hope you are getting my point that why vibrate, which is a very small thing for us in today's era, but that is something making sure that your device is accessible. Okay. Because in crowded environment, we cannot hear things, right? So that's situational related disability. Another example is uh, situational related disability is when you are driving car, you cannot use mobile phones easily, right? When you are driving, and that's where talking to Siri or talking to whatever Android has, I don't remember that now. Uh, those things help, right? Directly talking and making sure that the command works. That's another thing, right? So their accessibility works in a different way. Uh, Very simple example in cars also they have screens, right? But you would have noticed that compared to your mobile phone or even your tablet, those screens have very big icons. That is another form of sorry, not disability. That is another form of accessibility use. That is, you make sure that they are big enough so that you don't have to make it very precise. You can just go around that and just click anything and it will work, right? And that's how you make things accessible. That's one simple example, right? Now that was another situational disability. Another one I would say is power cut, right? For example, my room has lights right now, but suddenly if the power goes off, I'm blind for that particular situation. Okay. Same in blindness, temporary disability can be I don't know. I started YouTube. When did I start YouTube? I don't remember, but at least 1 year back, I used to have glasses and I was using them for almost 12, 13 years, right? And when I got my operation done, I had to rest for 2 days and I was unable to open my eyes and I was unable to see anything, right? So that situation, that's temporary disability for me. Okay, for 2 days, I won't be able to see things, right? And in that case, just giving a command to mobile phone worked for me and it was really, really good. Okay. Or if someone was calling, it was so easy to swipe and take call just because it's a reflex action. At the same time, the switches and everything has been made in such a way that it becomes easy. So that's another temporary and final in that case is blindness, which is permanent, right? So we have talked about disabilities. Now let me go in depth over. I have mentioned that we are often disabled in bits and pieces. Like no one is fully disabled. It's bits and pieces thing. Let's take example of the blind person. If they are at their home, they won't feel disabled. They won't feel it. Okay, just because they know their surrounding, they know everything how to use it, and that's how it things work for them, and they feel included in them. Those things, right? Now, at the same time, if we can make a lot of different things for them in similar way, they will feel included. They won't feel helpless. They won't feel that they are disabled. Okay, if they cannot do something at a given point, that's when they start feeling that they are disabled. Okay, so that's something we should keep in mind. Okay, uh, okay. So a lot of theory I have said. I know video drop rate would have gone. Like a lot of people would have left the video by now, but it's not for everyone. That's fine. Now, why accessibility? Okay, why we should focus on that? So there are three aspects to this. One is the moral aspect that we should make sure as someone who has those skills, who can develop those skills, should make sure that someone who has some certain kind of disability or has some certain type of skills should get included. Okay, so that's our moral duty. That's one. Second is business. Okay, why business? Because statistically, at any given point of time across the world, 20% of people are disabled. Okay. Now, when I say 20% of people are disabled, it means either they have permanent disability or situational or temporary disability. Okay. Obviously, it's a rough number and we cannot fully confirm this whether it applies only to web or the world in general, but 20% is still a very big number. So business wise also, we should make sure that we can include those 20%. And I'll actually you won't be just including 20%. Your business will be much more better compared to other websites just because I'll show you another data which shows that most of the websites don't follow accessibility correctly, or they don't even know what accessibility means. And because of that, if you are someone who can create that kind of website or an application which includes everyone, your product will get used more, right? And that 20% can be a huge number for you. So that's business logic. And third, which now has become much more important, is the legal aspect of it. Okay. Basically, a lot of lawsuits across USA, across Canada, across UK, and across Europe are getting filed on websites which are not accessible, okay, to someone who has disability, someone who has partial disability, temporary disability. They are filing lawsuits, okay, and companies had to pay fine for that. Okay, I'll give you the numbers around that also. I read an article. I'll show you that article because of which I'm creating this video, that it is important. At the same time, for my Indian viewers, right now I was watching, like a couple of days back, I was watching one movie called Shrikant. In that movie, some that person is blind, but he has a brilliant mind. He he did a lot of things for India at a national level. Okay, creating companies, working for, I think either he got selected MIT or Oxford, something like that. I don't remember that correctly right now. But he did really great work for nation, and he was blind, and he fought a lot of system related things just to make sure that books are accessible to blind people. Uh, Employment is easier for blind people, all those kind of things, right? Even his company has a policy of 80% blind workforce should work for them. So, and the worst part of that was that entire story is real, and that was of 2000 to 2010. I was actually studying to at that time and feeling that when I was studying in a good school, someone who was blind was not able to study because the books were not available to them. Because of that, I realized, okay, I should create something around that. Maybe even if one developer understands this thing and start working towards it, it would be really great. Okay. So that's what it is. Moral, because that's the right thing to do. Business, because that will give you more money. And legal, because in US a lot of lawsuits have been filed. For example, I can show you the 2023 study. You can go to this link. I have highlighted few things. Ignorance is no longer an option because ADA, which is Americans with Disabilities Act, which is basically the law to make sure that everything is accessible by everyone. Because of that lawsuit, uh, we no longer have an option, right? We have to make sure that we create such tools, such websites that are accessible by all. Otherwise, we will get sued at some point. And once we get sued, it's all gone actually. So yeah, that's one thing. These are some statistics. Top 500 e-commerce companies, which is like the best of the best. Out of those, 82%, like roughly 400 plus companies have faced legal actions in last couple of years. Okay. And I am really happy that those lawsuits have been filed because accessibility is really important. Earlier, it was just the moral thing, then it turned out to be business thing, but making it legal is the most correct way. Okay. Smaller companies generating annual revenue of less than 25 million face 73% of accessibility lawsuits. That's another really bad statistic. 97% of accessibility lawsuits target websites. So 3% are other things like mobile, desktop software, those kind of things. But 97% are related to website only. Okay. Prediction is that this number will go on to 300% increase. So really bad. These are some another like most of these lawsuits are getting filed in New York, Florida, California because the lawyers there are educated, the judges there are educated. They favor the plaintiffs. Basically, they favor someone who has a disability and who has filed the lawsuit correctly. So, yeah, it's really bad. But there's bright side to this. A lot of developers, a lot of courses, a lot of companies were ignoring accessibility. But the fact is, it is not that hard to implement. It is actually really easy. I worked with Google and I was uh, accessibility lead at that time to make sure that the OPI Android application was fully accessible to everyone. And that was year 2020, 2021. Okay. So I worked on that. After that, when I worked at dev.to, there also I worked in bits and pieces with accessibility, not fully, but I still made sure that I was working on that. And currently, when I worked at Gumroad last couple of weeks, the one PR that I was working on was related to making sure that the app website is much more accessible. Okay. So I hope, obviously, I work around everything else also, but accessibility is something that I really care about. So that's another thing that you should also start caring. It's really important. So I've given you all the statistics and everything around it. Now, okay. Now let's think of things in terms of code a bit. Okay. So first thing is, if we take example of blind people, how do they use website? Okay. So one of the examples is they use something called as screen reader. Screen readers are what? That whatever is on the screen, they will just read them out aloud, uh, clearly mention whether it is a heading, it is a link, it is a button, so that someone who is blind can take action. If it is a button, they know they have to click, and there are very easy tools to click. Same thing happens in mobile also. We have screen readers and everything around that to work with mobile also. Okay, so that's how they use the websites. Okay, now how can we make sure that websites are accessible? You don't need to be expert in accessibility. Obviously, there are very good courses for that, but you don't need to be expert. The two basic things that I'm teaching you, you should do that and you will be able to work with a lot of things. Okay. I'll show it to you in terms of demo. Okay. Let me refresh this. Okay. So you can see this pop-up. It's a dummy website that I created, Gumshop Netlify app. Now I'll just try to use this website with my tab, with my keyboard basically. Okay, and I'll use tab to switch between different items. And you just have to focus which particular item is getting highlighted. I'll start using tab, and you can see Gumshop icon is selected. This pop-up which is showing is not getting selected, or this close icon is not getting selected. So that's the first issue that I'm able to identify. That if what would be the first action for any user? They will just close this pop-up. So I cannot use this correctly, right? So that's one mistake that I am able to find. Let's close this, refresh, and now I won't see that pop-up that the way I have written code. But now again focus on the selected item. Gumshop, because this is a home icon, I can click on it, it's fine. Now I can type it, great. But let me try one thing. Rajat, okay, great, it is working. But I press tab, it should have gone through the item, instead it is going to login. So that's another mistake. Start selling, okay, okay. Now all is getting selected, 3D, drawing. Something else is getting selected, but because of this pop-up, we are unable to see it. So I think you are able to understand what type of problem I'm trying to focus on, right? Now let me get rid of this. Let me start again with tab. Now if I press space, you can see drawing gets selected. Again, tab, 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 space, software development got selected. Great. Now if I press tab, my product should get selected, but technically it won't. The URL got selected. This product is not getting selected. Why? Because I made a mistake. It should have been a role button or something like that. It is just a div, and because of that, it was not getting selected, right? So that's another issue. Now let's go inside this. And again, I will start with tab. You can see I want this is getting selected. Next tab, I want this is getting selected. Great. So we are able to see first thing, you should make sure that your website, wait, last thing is selected, which is icon, right? So let me press space. I press the space. You can see the copied text. It might have been a mistake. I might have not changed it to URL, but you see it worked, right? But I did not receive any feedback that it worked. Okay. So that's something, that's a mistake that I should have fixed. Uh, so I hope you understand how you can make sure that how you can judge whether your website is accessible or not. That's one. Now let's have a look at another thing, which is you can use something called as X. Okay, I'll right click, inspect. I don't know if each and every browser already has it by default, but if it is not there, then it will be just a Chrome extension or something like that. I'll go to here and X devs, dev tools. Okay, I'll click on it. I'll change it a bit. Okay, and in paid version, you can take much more advantage, but what I'll do is I'll do full page scan. There are zero issues on this website. So earlier we saw that there are mistakes because we were not able to select this item. But in X tool, we are getting, there are no mistakes, okay? Because it is a static analyzer, okay? It will just do static analysis related to fonts, related to uh, basic convention like button should have a text, images should have a all text, the color contrast should be correct. It will just do those kind of things, nothing else. And that's why this is the second step. That first is the keyboard, second is making sure that you use X tools. So combine both of these steps, you will cover 99% of accessibility issues. And you can see it's not that hard. I'll give you one example when there is an issue. Let's click here and again do rescan. It is doing it on this website and we can see one issue. What is that issue? That's button must have whatever this discernible text. Okay. Why are we getting this? Okay. I'm not sure which button they are talking, so I'll just click on highlight. Okay, this particular. So the problem is that accessible text, this button doesn't have a text. And that's where the problem is. Whenever a screen reader will be reading this particular button, for example, add to wishlist, they will be reading it as add to wishlist, comma, button. Okay. But here they don't have anything, so it will be empty, comma, button, which doesn't make sense. If I can just hear, okay, it's a button, but I don't know what type of button it is, what action I have to take. As a viewer who has eyes can understand, okay, it is a copy related button. But someone who cannot see, how will they understand that it is copy related action, right? And that's why I should have used area label, uh, area label with text as its value should have been copied or copy icon, something like that. Not icon, I think copy button. Okay, so I hope you understood the problem here. Now let's go to add to wish list. Okay, and we are able to go here. In this also, I'll rescan two issues. What are those issues? Form element must have labels. Okay, form element must have labels. It is a very common thing. I did not implement this correctly, and screen readers won't be able to use this particular page correctly. Okay, so I hope you understand how you can make sure as a developer what things you have to do. One is using X dev tools as much as possible. Second is making sure that you can use your website via keyboard only. And the best way of doing that is just decide, just do every week, just make sure that you won't use keyboard today. You won't use mouse today. You'll just use keyboard and use your website product fully. And that way you can keep up with it. Now, what's beyond that? if some of your user is actually disabled, they are the best person to help you out. They can help you out in a lot of ways just because they have used your product and they would want that product to improve, and that feedback will help you the most. So that's one thing, and you can actually pay them because paying for lawsuit and paying for someone who is actually helping you decide, right? So yeah, those are some major points that I had. You can write test cases also. Writing test cases is also possible, irrespective of what technology you are using. Although technologies do support, all the technologies do support writing test cases for accessibility related things also. So yeah, it was just an overview to make you aware what this is. Uh, if you like this, do write down in comments if you like this format, because a lot of these things are theoretical. Later on, when you actually, if you are interested in actually a course around it, going in depth around it in terms of coding and everything, I'm not sure if I'll do that, but maybe we can plan it based on how much interest we have. But you should start thinking about it. That's the only request that I have. That's it. Do comment, like, and share this video, and subscribe to this channel. Thank you. Bye bye.